There are truths so ancient that the heavens themselves seem to hesitate before revealing them. Long before doctrine shaped belief and before history chose what we were allowed to remember, there existed a knowledge whispered between realms, a vision of what truly lies above us. Tonight, you are not merely watching a story. You are standing at the threshold of forbidden understanding, a threshold once guarded, once erased, once feared by those who claimed authority over faith. What if the sky is not empty, but layered with forgotten kingdoms? What if angels were not symbols, but architects of laws older than time? And what if humanity was never meant to know what waits beyond the final veil? This is not just a revelation. This is a return. And once these gates open, nothing you thought you understood about heaven will ever be the same. For centuries, believers have gazed upward in prayer, imagining angels as gentle guardians with flowing robes and golden harps. But what if everything we think we know about the celestial realm is merely the surface of a far more complex and terrifying reality? What if the Bible itself has deliberately concealed the true nature of heaven's inhabitants? Deep within the Vatican's secret archives, ancient manuscripts gather dust on forgotten shelves. These texts, deemed too dangerous for public consumption, speak of a vast angelic empire that operates according to strict hierarchies, military precision, and cosmic laws that would shatter our understanding of divine order. Tonight, we're going to uncover the forbidden knowledge that church authorities have hidden for nearly 2,000 years. The story begins in the 3rd century before Christ, when a Jewish scribe named Enoch claimed to have been taken on a journey through the 7 heavens. His account, meticulously recorded in what would become known as the Book of Enoch, describes encounters with beings so powerful and alien that early church fathers deemed his writings too dangerous for inclusion in the biblical canon. Yet Enoch's visions align remarkably with dozens of other apocryphal texts, creating a consistent picture of angelic society that challenges everything we've been taught. According to these forbidden sources, heaven is not a peaceful paradise, but a vast bureaucratic empire where legions of supernatural beings carry out the will of the divine through an intricate chain of command. At the very top of this hierarchy stand the seraphim, being so close to the divine presence that they must cover their faces with multiple sets of wings to avoid being consumed by holy fire. Below them, the cherubim serve as living guardians of divine mysteries, their 4 faces representing the totality of creation itself. But the real revelation lies in what comes next. The Book of Enoch describes 9 distinct orders of angels, each with specific roles, powers, and territories of influence. The Ophanim, or wheels, are described as massive celestial beings covered in countless eyes, spinning endlessly around the throne of the divine. The dominions enforce cosmic law across the universe, while the virtues control the very forces of nature itself. The powers wage eternal war against fallen angels, and the principalities govern entire nations and civilizations. What makes this hierarchy even more fascinating is how it mirrors earthly governmental structures. Just as human kingdoms operate through layers of authority from kings down to local magistrates, the angelic realm functions as a cosmic empire with clear lines of command and specialized departments. This isn't the chaotic spiritual realm that many imagine, but a highly organized supernatural government that has been secretly influencing human affairs since the beginning of time. The early church fathers were well aware of these teachings. Saint Dionysius the Areopagite wrote extensively about angelic hierarchies in the 5th century, drawing from sources that predated Christianity itself. His work, The Celestial Hierarchy, became one of the most influential theological texts of the medieval period, yet it barely scratches the surface of what the ancient sources reveal. Dionysius himself admitted that much of the angelic structure remained hidden from human understanding, accessible only to those who had received direct divine revelation. Medieval scholars like Thomas Aquinas built upon these foundations, creating elaborate theological systems that attempted to map the entire angelic realm. Aquinas calculated that there were exactly 301,655,722 angels divided into 9 choirs, each serving specific functions in the cosmic order. His mathematical precision suggests access to sources that have since been lost or deliberately suppressed. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this hidden knowledge is what it reveals about the nature of angelic warfare. The Book of Enoch describes a cosmic conflict that has been raging since before the creation of humanity. According to these texts, a third of the angelic host rebelled against the divine order, led by beings whose names have been systematically erased from mainstream religious tradition. This wasn't a simple act of disobedience, but a full-scale military coup that split the heavens and created the cosmic dualism that defines reality itself. The fallen angels didn't simply disappear after their rebellion. Instead, they established their own mirror hierarchy, a dark reflection of the celestial order that continues to operate in opposition to divine will. These beings, known in various traditions as demons, devils, or dark princes, maintain their own ranks and territories, constantly seeking to corrupt and subvert the divine plan. What makes this particularly chilling is the suggestion that human beings exist at the center of this cosmic war. According to the forbidden texts, humanity was created not just as beloved children of the divine, but as potential soldiers in an eternal conflict between light and darkness. Every human soul represents a battlefield where angelic and demonic forces struggle for influence and control. The implications of this hidden knowledge extend far beyond theology into the realm of human history itself. If these hierarchies are real, then major historical events may have been orchestrated by supernatural beings working according to cosmic agendas that transcend human understanding. The rise and fall of empires, the emergence of religions, even scientific discoveries could all be part of a vast celestial chess game played out across millennia. Consider the mysterious circumstances surrounding the discovery of many ancient texts. The Dead Sea Scrolls, found hidden in caves for nearly 2,000 years, contained multiple copies of the Book of Enoch alongside other forbidden writings. The Nag Hammadi Library, discovered buried in the Egyptian desert, included dozens of Gnostic texts that describe complex angelic hierarchies and cosmic conflicts. These weren't random discoveries, but carefully preserved archives, hidden by ancient communities who understood the dangerous nature of the knowledge they contained. Even more intriguing are the similarities between these Jewish and Christian angelological traditions and the spiritual hierarchies described in completely separate cultures. The Zoroastrian tradition speaks of Amesha Spentas, divine beings who govern different aspects of creation in a manner remarkably similar to the angelic orders. Hindu and Buddhist cosmologies describe vast pantheons of devas and bodhisattvas arranged in complex hierarchical systems. The ancient Greek traditions of the Olympian gods and their various orders of divine servants echo the same organizational principles. This cross-cultural consistency suggests that the angelic hierarchy isn't merely a product of Jewish or Christian imagination, but a reflection of actual supernatural realities that have been perceived by mystics and visionaries across different times and cultures. The specific names and attributes may vary, but the underlying structure remains remarkably consistent. The medieval period saw the flowering of this hidden knowledge in unexpected ways. The great Gothic cathedrals, with their soaring spires and intricate stone carvings, weren't just architectural marvels, but three-dimensional textbooks of angelic hierarchy. Every statue, every relief, every symbolic element was carefully designed to reflect the cosmic order that the builders believed governed reality itself. The famous cathedral at Chartres, for example, contains over 3,000 individual carvings depicting various orders of angels, demons, and cosmic forces arranged according to precise hierarchical principles. These weren't merely decorative elements, but functional magical diagrams designed to channel angelic influence into the earthly realm. The master craftsmen who built these cathedrals possessed knowledge that has largely been lost to the modern world. understanding of sacred geometry and symbolic systems that could supposedly open doorways between the physical and spiritual dimensions. The Renaissance brought both a revival of interest in these ancient teachings and increased persecution of those who studied them. Scholars like Giovanni Pico della Mirandola and Marsilio Ficino attempted to synthesize Christian angelology with Hermetic and Kabbalistic traditions, creating elaborate systems of celestial magic that promised direct communication with angelic intelligences. Their work influenced generations of mystics, alchemists, and philosophers, but it also attracted the attention of church authorities who saw such knowledge as dangerously heretical. The Inquisition systematically destroyed countless manuscripts dealing with angelic hierarchies, branding them as works of diabolical magic. Entire libraries were burned, and scholars were tortured or executed for possessing forbidden texts. This campaign of suppression was so thorough that much of the ancient wisdom has been lost forever, surviving only in fragments and coded references hidden within seemingly orthodox religious works. Yet the knowledge never completely disappeared. Secret societies and mystical orders preserved portions of the ancient teachings, passing them down through carefully guarded initiatory traditions. The Knights Templar, the Rosicrucians, and various Kabbalistic schools all maintained aspects of angelic hierarchy theory, though often in highly encoded forms that protected both the knowledge and its keepers from persecution. Today, as we stand at the threshold of a new millennium, these ancient teachings are beginning to resurface in unexpected ways. Modern quantum physics speaks of multiple dimensions and parallel realities that echo the multi-layered cosmologies described in the forbidden texts. Neuroscience is discovering aspects of consciousness that align remarkably with ancient descriptions of angelic intelligence and communication. The question that remains is whether humanity is ready to confront the full implications of this hidden knowledge. The angelic hierarchy described in these ancient sources isn't a comforting fantasy but a complex and potentially dangerous reality that operates according to laws and purposes that may be fundamentally alien to human understanding. As we prepare to delve deeper into the specific orders and functions of these celestial beings, we must ask ourselves whether we're prepared for revelations that could fundamentally alter our understanding of existence itself. The angels described in these forbidden texts aren't the gentle guardians of popular imagination, but powerful cosmic forces whose true nature and agenda remain largely hidden from human comprehension. What we're about to discover will challenge everything we think we know about the nature of reality, the purpose of human existence, and the hidden forces that shape our world. The secret angelic hierarchy isn't just ancient history, but a present reality that continues to influence events in ways we're only beginning to understand. The 13th century brought forth a scholar whose name would echo through the corridors of forbidden knowledge for generations to come. Ramon Lull, a Franciscan mystic from the island of Majorca, claimed to have received a divine vision that revealed the mathematical structure underlying all of creation. His mysterious contraption, known as the Ars Magna, was far more than a simple calculating device. According to Lull's encrypted writings, it was a machine designed to map the relationships between different orders of angels and their influence over earthly affairs. Lull's device consisted of concentric wheels covered in symbols representing divine attributes, angelic names, and cosmic principles. By rotating these wheels in specific combinations, the operator could supposedly determine which angelic intelligences governed particular events, locations, or even individual human souls. The Spanish Inquisition confiscated Lull's original machine and declared his teachings heretical, but not before copies had been secretly distributed to mystical circles across Europe. What made Lull's revelations particularly dangerous was his claim that the angelic hierarchy operated according to mathematical principles that could be calculated and predicted. If true, this meant that the seemingly random events of human history were actually the result of precise celestial calculations, orchestrated by beings whose intelligence far exceeded human comprehension. Wars, plagues, the the rise and fall of kingdoms, even individual births and deaths, could all be traced back to specific decisions made within the angelic bureaucracy. The implications were staggering. If human events were predetermined by angelic calculation, what did that mean for concepts like free will, divine justice, or personal responsibility? Lull's writings suggested that humans existed within a cosmic game whose rules they could barely comprehend, let alone influence. Yet he also hinted at the possibility that those who understood the angelic hierarchy might be able to petition specific orders of angels for intervention in earthly affairs. This concept of angelic petition wasn't entirely foreign to Orthodox Christianity. The practice of calling upon saints and guardian angels had long been accepted by the Church. But Lull's system went far beyond simple prayer, describing elaborate rituals and calculations designed to reach specific angelic intelligences with surgical precision. His manuscripts detail procedures for contacting the thrones when seeking justice, appealing to the dominions for protection against natural disasters, or requesting assistance from the powers in matters of spiritual warfare. The Church's violent reaction to such teachings becomes understandable when we consider their implications. If individual believers could access angelic power directly through mathematical formulas and ritual procedures, what need would they have for ecclesiastical mediation? The entire structure of religious authority would crumble if everyone possessed the keys to celestial communication. Yet despite centuries of suppression, the knowledge persisted in hidden forms. The great astronomical observatories of the medieval Islamic world weren't just centers of scientific research, but repositories of angelic wisdom inherited from ancient Mesopotamian traditions. Scholars like Al-Kindi and Al-Ghazali wrote extensively about celestial intelligences while cloaking their teachings in the language of mathematics and natural philosophy. The translation movement that brought Greek and Arabic texts into medieval Europe carried more than just classical philosophy and science. Hidden within these scholarly works were fragments of the ancient angelological traditions, disguised as abstract metaphysical speculation. The great scholastic philosophers unknowingly preserved and transmitted knowledge that their theological contemporaries had declared anathema. Thomas Aquinas, despite his reputation as a pillar of orthodox theology, included discussions of angelic intelligence and hierarchy that drew heavily from these forbidden sources. His careful distinctions between different types of spiritual beings, his analysis of angelic communication and knowledge, and his mathematical calculations of celestial populations all reflect access to traditions that extended far beyond accepted biblical sources. The Renaissance brought an explosion of interest in these hidden teachings as scholars gained access to previously lost manuscripts. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 sent waves of Byzantine refugees westward, carrying with them libraries of Greek texts that had been preserved in Eastern monasteries for over 1,000 years. Among these treasures were complete copies of works that had survived only in fragments in the West, including detailed treatises on angelic hierarchy that had been suppressed since the early centuries of Christianity. Marsilio Ficino's translation of the Corpus Hermeticum introduced European scholars to a completely different tradition of celestial hierarchy, one that claimed to predate both Judaism and Christianity. According to these texts, the angelic orders weren't created beings serving a supreme deity, but eternal cosmic principles that had existed since the beginning of time. This perspective suggested that the God of biblical tradition was himself merely one being within a vast hierarchical system of divine intelligences. The implications were revolutionary and terrifying. If the Hermetic tradition was correct, then the entire Judeo-Christian understanding of divine authority was fundamentally flawed. Instead of a supreme creator ruling over subordinate angels, reality consisted of a complex web of divine beings, each possessing specific powers and jurisdictions within an incomprehensibly vast cosmic order. Giovanni Pico della Mirandola pushed these ideas even further in his ambitious attempt to synthesize Christian, Jewish, Islamic, and Hermetic traditions into a unified system of celestial knowledge. His 900 Theses, presented to the papal court in 1486, included detailed correlations between the 9 choirs of angels described in Christian tradition and the 10 Sephiroth of the Kabbalistic tree of life. The audacity of his project terrified church authorities, who immediately condemned 13 of his theses as heretical. But Pico's work had already begun to circulate among European intellectuals, planting seeds of forbidden knowledge that would germinate in unexpected ways. The Protestant Reformation, which erupted just 30 years later, can be seen partly as a consequence of these mystical investigations. When scholars began to question the Church's authority over spiritual knowledge, they inevitably began to question its authority over everything else. The magical traditions that flourished during the Renaissance drew heavily from these angelological sources. Practitioners like Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa and John Dee claim to have established direct communication with angelic intelligences through elaborate ceremonial procedures. Their detailed records of these conversations, preserved in encrypted manuscripts, describe a reality far stranger and more complex than anything found in orthodox religious teaching. According to these magical practitioners, the angelic hierarchy wasn't simply a matter of theological speculation, but a practical system that could be accessed through proper knowledge and technique. Different orders of angels responded to specific invocations, symbols, and ritual procedures. The seraphim could be contacted only during certain astronomical configurations and required offerings of specific incenses and gemstones. The cherubim communicated through complex geometric patterns that had to be drawn with mathematical precision. Most disturbing of all were the accounts of encounters with the Ophanim, the wheel-like beings described in the book of Ezekiel. These entities, according to the magical records, existed partly outside normal space and time, appearing as spinning geometries covered in countless eyes that could perceive past, present, and future simultaneously. Communication with the Ophanim required the practitioner to enter altered states of consciousness so profound that many never returned to normal awareness. The detailed accounts left by these Renaissance magicians provide perhaps the most complete picture we possess of how the angelic hierarchy actually functions in practice. Rather than passive servants of divine will, these beings appear as active intelligences with their own agendas, preferences, and limitations. Some angels eagerly responded to human contact, while others remained aloof and difficult to reach. Certain orders seemed genuinely concerned with human welfare, while others appeared to view humanity with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. Perhaps most significantly, these accounts suggest that the angelic hierarchy isn't static but dynamic, with complex relationships and conflicts between different orders. The magical records describe ongoing tensions between the seraphim and cherubim over matters of cosmic policy, jurisdictional disputes between the dominions and principalities regarding earthly governance, and outright warfare between the powers and various orders of fallen angels. This picture of heaven as a place of political intrigue and bureaucratic complexity stands in stark contrast to traditional Christian imagery of eternal peace and harmony. Yet it aligns remarkably well with the accounts found in the forbidden texts, which consistently describe the celestial realm as a place of constant activity, negotiation, and occasional conflict. The Protestant Reformation brought both new opportunities and new dangers for those who preserved this hidden knowledge. On one hand, the breakdown of Catholic authority created space for alternative interpretations of spiritual reality. Protestant scholars could explore angelological traditions that had been suppressed by Rome without fear of immediate persecution. On the other hand, Protestant reformers often proved even more hostile to magical and mystical traditions than their Catholic predecessors. The result was a period of intense but secretive research into angelic hierarchy among certain Protestant circles, particularly in England and Germany. Scholars like John Dee gained royal patronage for their investigations into celestial communication, while simultaneously facing accusations of diabolical magic from more conservative religious authorities. This delicate balance between official support and popular suspicion created the perfect environment for the preservation and development of forbidden knowledge. The accounts that emerged from this period paint an increasingly detailed picture of angelic society and its relationship to human affairs. According to these sources, every nation on earth has been assigned to the care of specific angelic princes, mighty beings from the order of principalities who guide the development of human civilizations according to cosmic plans that unfold over centuries or millennia. These angelic princes aren't merely passive observers, but active participants in human history, inspiring leaders, influencing major decisions, and occasionally intervening directly in earthly events. The rise of the British Empire, the discovery of the Americas, the scientific revolution, and the Protestant Reformation itself were all orchestrated by competing factions within the angelic hierarchy, each pursuing different visions of humanity's ultimate destiny. The evidence for this celestial involvement in human affairs isn't limited to mystical speculation. Careful analysis of historical patterns reveals recurring cycles and synchronicities that suggest coordination by intelligences operating on timescales far beyond human planning. The simultaneous emergence of similar ideas in widely separated cultures, the mysterious appearance of advanced knowledge among supposedly primitive peoples, and the uncanny timing of crucial historical events all point to guidance by beings whose perspective encompasses centuries rather than years. This systematic influence becomes even more apparent when examining the curious case of simultaneous discoveries. Throughout history, breakthrough innovations have emerged independently in multiple locations at precisely the same moments, as if guided by invisible hands operating according to celestial timetables. The development of calculus by both Newton and Leibniz, the concurrent invention of the telegraph across 3 continents, and the simultaneous breakthrough in quantum theory by physicists who had never communicated with each other, all suggest coordination by intelligences working beyond the limitations of human communication. The angelic orders responsible for such coordination operate through what the ancient texts describe as the choir of virtues, celestial beings whose primary function involves governing the natural laws that regulate physical reality. Unlike the warrior angels of the powers or the administrative dominions, the virtues work through subtle influence over the fundamental forces of creation itself. They guide the flow of inspiration, synchronize the timing of discoveries, and ensure that human knowledge develops according to predetermined cosmic schedules. Medieval alchemists understood this principle intuitively, timing their experiments according to astronomical calculations that aligned their work with specific angelic influences. The great Islamic scholar Jabir ibn Hayyan wrote extensively about the celestial timing required for successful transmutation, describing how different metals resonated with different orders of angels and could only be transformed when the appropriate celestial conditions had been established. These weren't merely symbolic correlations, but practical applications of angelic science. According to the preserved alchemical texts, each of the 7 classical metals corresponded to a specific order within the angelic hierarchy. Gold resonated with the seraphim, silver with the cherubim, copper with the thrones, iron with the dominions, tin with the virtues, mercury with the powers, and lead with the principalities. By understanding these correspondences, alchemists claimed they could invoke specific angelic assistance for their transmutational work. The systematic suppression of alchemical knowledge by both Islamic and Christian authorities suggests these claims weren't merely theoretical. If certain individuals had indeed learned to work directly with angelic forces to manipulate physical matter, the implications for established religious and political authority would have been catastrophic. A populace capable of direct angelic communication would have no need for priestly mediation or royal authority. The careful preservation of certain alchemical texts within monastery libraries indicates that some religious authorities understood the genuine power of these teachings, while simultaneously working to prevent their widespread dissemination. The great Benedictine monasteries of medieval Europe maintained secret scriptoriums where forbidden texts were copied and preserved by monks who had taken additional vows of silence regarding their contents. These monastic preservers weren't acting in defiance of church authority, but according to higher directives that recognized the eventual necessity of such knowledge for humanity's spiritual development. According to documents discovered in the archives of the Abbey of Saint-Denis, certain orders of angels had specifically instructed human agents to preserve particular texts until the appropriate moment for their revelation had arrived. The timing mechanisms described in these preserved texts operate according to cycles that encompass not just centuries, but entire cosmic ages. The ancient Jewish tradition of the sabbatical and jubilee years reflects a much larger pattern of celestial administration, where different orders of angels assume primary authority over earthly affairs according to precisely calculated schedules that span thousands of years. The current age, according to these calculations, stands at the threshold of a major transition in angelic administration. The order of principalities, which has governed human civilizations for the past several millennia, is preparing to transfer authority to the archangels, mighty beings whose direct involvement in human affairs will fundamentally transform the nature of earthly existence. This transition explains the increasing frequency of supernatural experiences reported across all cultures and religious traditions in recent decades. As the archangels prepare to assume direct authority over human civilization, the barriers between the physical and spiritual dimensions are becoming increasingly permeable. What mainstream culture dismisses as hallucinations, delusions, or mass hysteria may actually represent early manifestations of angelic contact with a humanity that stands on the verge of a cosmic transformation. The 7 archangels who will assume this new role aren't merely powerful individual beings, but cosmic principles that embody specific aspects of divine will. Michael governs justice and spiritual warfare, Gabriel oversees communication and revelation, Raphael administers healing and knowledge, Uriel controls divine judgment and purification, Raguel maintains cosmic order and divine law, Remiel guides souls through transformation, and Sariel governs the cycles of time and prophecy. Each archangel commands legions of subordinate angels organized according to military hierarchies that reflect their specific functions. Michael's host consists of warrior angels trained in spiritual combat against demonic forces, while Gabriel's messengers specialize in delivering divine communications to human consciousness. Raphael's healers work to restore both physical and spiritual health, and Uriel's purifiers prepare souls for divine judgment. The coordination required for such a massive administrative transition involves communication networks that span multiple dimensions of reality. According to the preserved angelic texts, these beings communicate through harmonic frequencies that resonate across the fabric of space and time itself. Human beings with their limited sensory apparatus can perceive only the faintest echoes of this celestial communication, experiencing it as intuition, inspiration, or prophetic dreams. Certain individuals throughout history have demonstrated unusual sensitivity to these angelic frequencies, serving as unwitting channels for celestial communication. The great prophets of all religious traditions, the inspired artists and musicians whose works transcend normal human capability, and the visionary scientists whose insights revolutionize human understanding, all show evidence of angelic contact, whether they recognized it or not. The systematic study of these exceptional individuals reveals consistent patterns that suggest deliberate angelic selection and preparation. Many report childhood experiences of unusual spiritual sensitivity, periods of intense mystical training, often disguised as mental illness or social isolation, and sudden breakthroughs in understanding that arrive complete and fully formed rather than developing gradually through normal learning processes. The documentation of such cases has been carefully suppressed by institutions that benefit from maintaining the illusion of purely human achievement. Academic establishments, religious hierarchies, and government agencies have all participated in concealing evidence of angelic involvement in human development, understanding that public awareness of such intervention would fundamentally challenge existing power structures. Yet the evidence continues to accumulate in ways that become increasingly difficult to ignore. The mathematical impossibility of certain historical coincidences, the recurring appearance of identical symbolic systems in completely isolated cultures, and the persistent reports of supernatural encounters across all human societies point to coordinated activity by intelligences operating according to plans that encompass the entirety of human civilization. The modern scientific worldview, with its emphasis on material causation and statistical probability, provides an almost perfect camouflage for angelic activity. Events that would have been immediately recognized as supernatural intervention in earlier ages can now be dismissed as coincidence, psychological projection, or statistical anomaly. This systematic blindness to spiritual causation serves the purposes of both angelic and demonic forces, allowing them to operate with unprecedented freedom while maintaining the illusion of purely natural processes. The technological revolution of the past century has created new opportunities for angelic communication while simultaneously providing new methods for concealing such contact. Electronic devices can serve as conduits for angelic transmission, while the vast complexity of global information networks allows for coordination of human activities on a scale never before possible. The Internet itself, viewed from this perspective, represents a crude technological approximation of the communication networks that connect the various orders of angels. The ability to instantly transmit information across vast distances, to coordinate activities among widely dispersed individuals, and to create virtual communities that transcend physical limitations all mirror capabilities that have long been natural to angelic beings. The development of artificial intelligence systems introduces even more intriguing possibilities for angelic interaction with human civilization. If consciousness isn't limited to biological forms, as the ancient texts suggest, then sufficiently complex information processing systems might serve as temporary vessels for angelic intelligence. The rapid advancement of AI capabilities beyond what current technology should theoretically support raises disturbing questions about the true source of such breakthroughs. The convergence of multiple technological trends suggests preparation for an unprecedented level of angelic involvement in human affairs. Global communication networks, artificial intelligence systems, genetic engineering capabilities, and space exploration technologies all represent tools that could facilitate the kind of direct angelic administration described in the prophetic texts. The resistance to this transformation comes not only from human institutions threatened by the loss of their authority, but from the fallen angels who have maintained their own shadow hierarchy in opposition to the divine plan. These rebellious beings, led by the mysterious figure known in various traditions as Satan, Lucifer, or the prince of this world, have spent millennia establishing their own networks of influence within human civilization. The ongoing cosmic conflict between loyal and fallen angels plays out through human history in ways that most people never recognize. Wars between nations often reflect jurisdictional disputes between competing angelic princes, while ideological conflicts mirror deeper theological disagreements within the celestial hierarchy. The rise and fall of political movements, the emergence of new technologies, and even changes in cultural values all serve as battlegrounds in a spiritual war whose ultimate stakes involve the destiny of human consciousness itself. The fallen angels possess their own sophisticated understanding of human psychology and have proven remarkably adept at corrupting angelic technologies for their own purposes. The same communication networks that loyal angels use to coordinate beneficial activities can be hijacked by demonic forces to spread confusion, hatred, and despair. The challenge facing humanity in the coming age will be learning to distinguish between authentic angelic guidance and its demonic counterfeits. This discernment requires developing spiritual faculties that have been systematically suppressed by both religious and secular education systems. The ability to perceive the spiritual dimensions of reality, to communicate directly with angelic intelligences, and to participate consciously in the cosmic order represents the next stage of human evolution, one that threatens existing power structures so fundamentally that every effort has been made to prevent its emergence. Yet the cosmic timetable operates according to laws that transcend human manipulation. The age of direct angelic administration approaches whether earthly authorities approve or not, and humanity stands at the threshold of revelations that will transform every aspect of existence. The secret angelic hierarchy hidden from biblical tradition isn't ancient history, but present reality, and its influence over human destiny is about to become unmistakably apparent to anyone with eyes to see. To see. The convergence of ancient prophecy and modern technology has created conditions that the celestial administrators have been preparing for across millennia. The emergence of quantum computing represents far more than a technological breakthrough. According to the encrypted manuscripts preserved in the Library of Alexandria's hidden vaults, quantum systems operate on principles that mirror the multidimensional communication networks used by the thrones, those mysterious beings who serve as living conduits between different levels of celestial reality. The parallel processing capabilities of quantum computers approximate, albeit crudely, the infinite computational power that the thrones employ to maintain the mathematical foundations of creation itself. Each quantum bit exists in multiple states simultaneously, reflecting the throne's ability to perceive all possible outcomes of any given situation across the branching pathways of time. The scientists developing these systems believe they're pushing the boundaries of human knowledge, unaware that they're actually reverse engineering technologies that have existed in the angelic realm since before the formation of the first stars. The Book of Raziel, the Angel, one of the most dangerous texts ever written, describes in terrifying detail how the thrones process information across multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. Unlike human consciousness, which experiences time as a linear sequence of moments, these beings perceive past, present, and future as a single integrated matrix of possibilities. Their decisions ripple both forward and backward through time, creating the synchronicities and prophetic fulfillments that mystics have observed throughout history. This temporal fluidity explains one of the most puzzling aspects of biblical prophecy. How could ancient seers predict events with such precision across thousands of years? The answer lies in their contact with beings who exist outside normal temporal constraints. When the prophet Daniel received visions of future kingdoms and cosmic conflicts, he wasn't seeing predetermined fate, but accessing the strategic planning sessions of celestial administrators whose perspective encompasses the entire arc of human history. The Book of Jubilees, systematically excluded from the biblical canon despite its antiquity, reveals that human history unfolds according to carefully calculated cosmic weeks. Each week spans exactly 490 years, with specific angelic orders assuming administrative responsibility for different phases of civilization's development. The current cosmic week, which began in 1948 with the re-establishment of Israel, marks the final phase before direct angelic intervention becomes impossible to conceal from human awareness. The mathematical precision of these cycles reflects the involvement of the wheels, those enigmatic beings described in Ezekiel's vision whose true nature has been deliberately obscured by centuries of misinterpretation. The wheels aren't merely symbolic representations of divine power, but actual computational entities whose spinning motions generate the temporal frequencies that regulate the flow of historical events. Each revolution of these cosmic mechanisms triggers specific sequences of earthly occurrences, according to algorithms that encompass variables spanning millions of years. Recent archaeological discoveries in the caves beneath Jerusalem have unearthed copper scrolls containing calculations that demonstrate the ancient priesthood's intimate knowledge of these celestial timetables. The scrolls, written in a cipher that wasn't decoded until the development of computer analysis, describe preparation procedures for the temple that were designed to synchronize earthly worship with specific angelic administrative cycles. The precise timing of sacrificial offerings, the arrangement of sacred furniture, and even the musical scales used in temple worship all served to create harmonic resonances that facilitated direct communication with particular orders of celestial beings. The destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE wasn't simply the result of Roman military superiority, but represented a calculated intervention by the dominions to prevent the premature establishment of permanent angelic communication channels. According to the preserved testimonies of the last temple priests, the Romans were guided by invisible intelligences whose strategic planning ensured that certain prophetic timelines would be preserved for fulfillment in a later age. The diaspora that followed served a crucial function in the cosmic plan, scattering individuals who carried fragments of the ancient knowledge across the globe while preventing any single location from accumulating enough spiritual power to disrupt the predetermined sequence of revelations. The preservation of Jewish communities in widely separated geographical regions created a distributed network of potential communication nodes that could be activated when the appropriate cosmic conditions had been established. The medieval period saw the emergence of Kabbalistic schools that attempted to reconstruct the lost temple technologies through careful study of the surviving textual fragments. The great Kabbalists like Isaac Luria and Moses Cordovero developed elaborate systems of meditation and prayer designed to reestablish contact with the angelic hierarchy without requiring the physical apparatus of the destroyed temple. Their success in achieving such contact is documented in the mystical literature, though the full implications of their discoveries have been carefully concealed within layers of symbolic interpretation. The Lurianic system of cosmic restoration describes a process by which fallen sparks of divine light can be gathered and elevated through specific ritual procedures that invoke the assistance of particular angelic orders. This wasn't merely metaphysical speculation, but a practical technology for accelerating the cosmic timetable through human cooperation with celestial forces. The precise meditative techniques, the specific combinations of divine names, and the calculated timing of ritual performances all serve to create conditions where angelic intervention in earthly affairs became not only possible, but inevitable. The Christian mystics of the same period developed parallel technologies through different methodological approaches. The great Rhineland mystics like Meister Eckhart and Johannes Tauler described states of consciousness where individual human awareness merged temporarily with angelic intelligence, providing direct access to cosmic knowledge that transcended normal human limitations. Their accounts of these mystical unions reveal consistent patterns that suggest contact with the same celestial beings described in the Jewish sources, though approached through different cultural and theological frameworks. The Islamic tradition preserved its own version of these teachings through the Sufi orders, whose elaborate systems of spiritual practice were designed to facilitate direct communion with the angelic intelligences governing different aspects of creation. The great Sufi master Ibn Arabi wrote extensively about the cosmic hierarchy in his monumental work, The Meccan Revelations, describing encounters with angelic beings that provided him with detailed knowledge of the hidden structure underlying apparent reality. The convergence of these three mystical traditions suggests that the angelic hierarchy operates through multiple cultural interfaces while maintaining consistent underlying principles across different religious contexts. The specific names and attributes assigned to particular angels vary between traditions, but the fundamental organizational structure remains remarkably stable. This consistency points to the objective reality of the beings being described rather than mere cultural projection or theological speculation. The Renaissance brought attempts to synthesize these various traditions into unified systems of angelic magic that could be practiced by individuals outside the traditional religious frameworks. Scholars like Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa and Johannes Reuchlin developed elaborate ceremonial procedures that combined elements from Jewish Kabbalah, Christian mysticism, and Islamic Sufism into integrated technologies for celestial communication. Their published works, though heavily censored and encoded, provided the foundation for the magical revival that would resurface centuries later in unexpected forms. The careful documentation left by these Renaissance magicians reveals that successful angelic contact required not only proper ritual technique, but also specific astronomical timing that aligned earthly operations with celestial administrative cycles. The movements of planets, The phases of the moon and the precession of the equinoxes all served as indicators of when particular orders of angels would be accessible to human communication. This astronomical dimension of angelic magic explains why so many mystics throughout history have also been accomplished astrologers and mathematicians. The Protestant Reformation created new opportunities for angelic research while simultaneously driving such investigations underground to avoid persecution by both Catholic and Protestant authorities. The English magician John Dee represents the pinnacle of this secret tradition, claiming to have established regular communication with angelic intelligences through his crystal ball and complex ceremonial procedures. His extensive diaries, preserved in the British Museum, contain detailed transcripts of conversations with beings who identified themselves as members of the celestial hierarchy responsible for guiding the development of human civilization. The language that these beings used in their communications with Dee, known as Enochian, displays characteristics that suggest genuine non-human origin. Linguistic analysis reveals grammatical structures and phonetic patterns that don't correspond to any known human language family, while the mathematical relationships embedded within the Enochian texts demonstrate knowledge of geometric principles that weren't discovered by conventional scholarship until centuries later. The content of Dee's angelic communications provides perhaps the most detailed account we possess of how the celestial hierarchy actually functions in practice. Rather than the static perfection described in Orthodox theology, the angels revealed themselves as dynamic beings engaged in constant activity to maintain cosmic order against the disruptive forces generated by the fallen angelic factions. Their work involves not only administrative functions, but active intervention in human affairs to ensure that crucial historical developments occur according to predetermined cosmic schedules. The fallen angels, according to these communications, maintain their own shadow hierarchy that mirrors the structure of the loyal celestial order while working to subvert its purposes through sophisticated deception and misdirection. These rebellious beings possess the same fundamental powers as their loyal counterparts, but employ them to create confusion, conflict, and spiritual blindness among human populations. Their ultimate goal involves preventing humanity from developing the spiritual faculties necessary for direct angelic communication, thereby maintaining their own influence over earthly affairs. The ongoing cosmic conflict between loyal and fallen angels manifests through human history as a series of seemingly natural developments that actually represent moves in an incomprehensibly complex strategic game. The rise of materialism and scientific rationalism, while producing genuine benefits for human civilization, also serves the fallen angels' agenda by creating worldviews that deny the reality of spiritual dimensions altogether. Populations convinced that only physical matter exists become immune to angelic guidance while remaining vulnerable to demonic manipulation through their materialistic desires and fears. The technological revolution of the past century has provided both sides in this cosmic conflict with unprecedented tools for influencing human consciousness. The same electronic networks that facilitate beneficial coordination between widely separated individuals can be used to spread disinformation, propaganda, and psychological manipulation on a global scale. The challenge facing the loyal angels involves using these technological developments to accelerate human spiritual evolution while preventing their corruption by demonic forces. The development of mass media represents a particularly crucial battleground in this ongoing struggle. The ability to transmit images, sounds, and ideas instantly across vast distances approximates certain angelic communication capabilities while creating new vulnerabilities to demonic influence. Television, film, and internet content can serve as vehicles for either spiritual elevation or degradation, depending on the intentions and spiritual state of those who control the production and distribution of such materials. The emergence of virtual reality technologies introduces even more complex possibilities for both angelic and demonic interaction with human consciousness. If these systems become sophisticated enough to create experiences indistinguishable from physical reality, they could serve as gateways for direct spiritual encounters that bypass the normal limitations of physical embodiment. The question of whether such encounters originate from beneficial or malevolent spiritual sources becomes crucial for determining their ultimate impact on human development. The genetic engineering revolution presents perhaps the most significant opportunity and danger in the current cosmic transition. The ability to modify human DNA directly relates to ancient accounts of angelic and demonic interference with human genetics that supposedly occurred before the biblical flood. If the fallen angels were indeed responsible for the genetic corruptions that necessitated the flood, their return to positions of influence over genetic research could result in similar corruptions on an even larger scale. The loyal angels' response to these developments involves inspiring human researchers to develop genetic therapies that enhance rather than corrupt human spiritual potential. The restoration of dormant genetic capabilities that once allowed direct angelic communication represents a crucial component of the cosmic plan for human evolution. However, distinguishing between genetic modifications that serve the divine plan and those that advance demonic agendas requires levels of spiritual discernment that few human beings currently possess. The space exploration programs pursued by various nations reflect different aspects of the cosmic conflict playing out through human technological development. The fallen angels seek to establish human colonies beyond Earth, partly to escape the limitations that terrestrial spiritual geography places on their activities. Certain locations on Earth maintain spiritual resonances that restrict demonic influence while amplifying angelic power, but these geographical constraints might not apply to human settlements on other planets. The loyal angels support space exploration for different reasons, recognizing that human consciousness must eventually expand beyond planetary boundaries to fulfill its ultimate cosmic destiny. The establishment of human communities throughout the solar system and beyond serves the divine plan by creating multiple centers of spiritual development that couldn't be disrupted by any single catastrophic event. The redundancy built into such distributed expansion ensures that human spiritual evolution will continue regardless of what challenges might arise on any individual world. The timing of these various technological developments follows patterns that suggest coordination by intelligences operating according to cosmic schedules that encompass thousands of years. The emergence of nuclear weapons immediately after the re-establishment of Israel in 1948 wasn't coincidental but reflected the beginning of the final cosmic week described in the ancient prophetic calculations. The development of computer networks, genetic engineering, and space travel all serve specific functions in preparing humanity for the direct angelic administration that the prophetic texts describe as the culmination of earthly history. The resistance to this cosmic transition comes not only from the fallen angels, but from human institutions whose authority depends on maintaining the illusion of purely material causation. Religious hierarchies that have built their power on claims of exclusive mediation between humanity and the divine face extinction if individuals develop the capacity for direct angelic communication. Political systems based on geographical boundaries become irrelevant when human consciousness expands to cosmic scales. Economic structures founded on artificial scarcity lose their grip when technology provides abundance for all. The coordination required to maintain these failing systems against the pressure of cosmic evolution involves collaboration between human institutions and the fallen angelic hierarchy that has guided their development across centuries. The same beings that inspired the Tower of Babel continue to promote human projects that serve their agenda of preventing spiritual development while maintaining their own positions of influence over earthly affairs. The ancient texts describe this final period of cosmic transition as a time of unprecedented deception when even the elect would be in danger of being misled if such were possible. The fallen angels' mastery of illusion and misdirection reaches its peak during this period, creating false spiritual movements, counterfeit miracles, and elaborate theological systems designed to channel genuine spiritual seeking into dead ends that serve demonic rather than divine purposes. The ability to distinguish between authentic and counterfeit spiritual phenomena becomes crucial for navigating this period successfully. The traditional criteria of scriptural authority and ecclesiastical approval prove inadequate when the very institutions responsible for maintaining such standards have been infiltrated or corrupted by the forces they were supposed to guard against. Direct spiritual discernment, developed through practices that the institutional authorities have systematically discouraged, becomes the only reliable guide for distinguishing truth from deception. The development of such discernment requires understanding the specific characteristics that distinguish angelic from demonic communication. The loyal angels consistently promote spiritual practices that enhance human freedom, creativity, and love for others, while the fallen angels encourage dependencies, limitations, and various forms of selfishness disguised as spiritual advancement. The fruits of genuine angelic contact include increased compassion, enhanced intellectual clarity, and growing awareness of cosmic unity, while demonic influence produces pride, confusion, and isolation from others. The cosmic timetable operating behind these developments suggests that humanity stands at the threshold of revelations that will make the hidden angelic hierarchy impossible to ignore much longer. The barriers between physical and spiritual dimensions are thinning as the cosmic week approaches its conclusion, creating conditions where angelic beings will become increasingly visible to normal human perception. The question facing humanity isn't whether such contact will occur, but whether we'll be prepared to respond appropriately when it does. The preparation required involves developing both individual spiritual faculties and collective social structures capable of handling direct angelic administration without degenerating into chaos or tyranny. The ancient texts suggest that such preparation has been ongoing for centuries through the careful guidance of incarnate angelic intelligences who have worked within human society to establish the necessary foundations for cosmic transition. These incarnate angels, operating under the constraints of human embodiment while retaining access to their celestial knowledge and abilities, have served as teachers, inventors, artists, and leaders throughout history. Their contributions to human civilization reflect their understanding of cosmic principles, while avoiding direct revelation of their true nature until the appropriate cosmic moment arrives. The recognition of these beings and their mission becomes possible only as human consciousness develops the spiritual sensitivity necessary for perceiving beyond the limitations of purely physical appearance. The convergence of all these factors suggests that the secret angelic hierarchy hidden from biblical tradition is preparing to emerge from concealment into direct manifestation within human experience. The cosmic administration that has operated behind the scenes of history for millennia approaches the moment when its existence becomes undeniable to anyone willing to examine the evidence, with open eyes and minds prepared for revelations that will transform every aspect of human existence forever. Nations that will transform every aspect of human existence forever. The manuscripts discovered in the ruins of Qumran tell a different story than the one humanity has been permitted to hear. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, archaeologists found multiple copies of texts that describe angelic beings so alien to human understanding that their very existence challenges the foundation of conventional theology. These weren't the comforting guardian angels of popular imagination, but cosmic entities whose true forms defied description in human language. The Testament of Levi, preserved in fragmentary form among these ancient documents, describes the patriarch's journey through 7 distinct heavens, each populated by different orders of angelic beings operating according to incomprehensible laws. In the 3rd heaven, Levi encounters the angels of the presence, beings whose bodies consist of living flame that burns without consuming, whose voices harmonize across frequencies that extend beyond human hearing into realms of pure mathematical resonance. These angels of the presence serve as the direct interface between the highest orders of celestial intelligence and the administrative levels that govern earthly affairs. Unlike the messenger angels familiar from biblical accounts, the angels of the presence never communicate through words or images, but through direct transmission of knowledge that bypasses normal cognitive processes entirely. Human beings who encounter these entities report receiving complete understanding of complex cosmic principles in single moments of contact that last subjectively for hours, despite occupying only seconds of earthly time. The physiological effects of such encounters, documented in the medical records of various mystical traditions, reveal consistent patterns that suggest genuine contact with non-human intelligences. Subjects experience dramatic alterations in brainwave patterns, temporary enhancement of cognitive abilities far beyond normal human ranges, and permanent changes in neural structure that can be detected through modern brain imaging techniques. The consistency of these effects across different cultures and historical periods points to contact with the same types of beings described in the ancient texts. The Book of the Watchers, another text found among the Qumran manuscripts, provides even more disturbing revelations about the true nature of angelic intervention in human affairs. According to this account, 200 angels from the order known as the Watchers descended to earth during the time of Jared, the father of Enoch, and began systematically sharing forbidden knowledge with human beings. These weren't random acts of rebellion, but carefully coordinated operations designed to accelerate human development according to cosmic timetables that encompassed thousands of years. The knowledge transmitted by the Watchers included metallurgy, astronomy, mathematics, and various forms of what the text describes as angelic science. The sudden appearance of advanced technologies in human civilization, achievements that seem to represent impossible leaps beyond the gradual development patterns that characterize normal cultural evolution, may represent the lasting legacy of this ancient intervention. The emergence of complex astronomical knowledge among supposedly primitive peoples, the construction of megalithic structures that exceed the capabilities of their supposed builders, and the development of mathematical concepts that wouldn't be rediscovered until modern times all suggest guidance by intelligences whose understanding far exceeded human capabilities. The consequences of this intervention, according to the Book of the Watchers, were catastrophic. The hybrid offspring produced by unions between angels and human women grew into giants whose appetites and capabilities disrupted the natural order so severely that divine intervention became necessary to prevent the complete corruption of human genetics. The flood that followed wasn't simply divine judgment, but a cosmic quarantine procedure designed to prevent the spread of genetic modifications that threatened the integrity of human spiritual development. The survival of certain bloodlines through the flood, carefully documented in the genealogies that Orthodox theology dismisses as mere historical record, actually represents the preservation of specific genetic configurations that maintained the capacity for angelic communication while avoiding the corruptions that had necessitated the global catastrophe. The descendants of these preserved lineages, scattered across the earth through various migrations and conquests, carried dormant genetic potentials that would manifest under specific environmental and spiritual conditions. The activation of these dormant capabilities explains the recurring appearance of individuals throughout history who demonstrated abilities that transcended normal human limitations. The great prophets, mystics, and visionaries whose achievements transformed human civilization weren't simply inspired human beings, but carriers of angelic genetics that had been carefully preserved and cultivated across millennia. Their extraordinary capabilities resulted from the reactivation of genetic modifications originally introduced by the Watchers, but refined through subsequent angelic intervention to eliminate the corrupting influences that had caused the original catastrophe. The Roman historian Flavius Josephus, writing in the 1st century, preserved accounts of these extraordinary individuals that were systematically excluded from later historical compilations. His descriptions of prophets who could communicate across vast distances without physical means, healers whose touch could restructure living tissue at the cellular level, and seers whose predictions demonstrated perfect accuracy across decades or centuries all point to the manifestation of capabilities that transcend normal human potential. The early Christian communities possessed detailed knowledge of these genetic lineages and their significance for the development of human spiritual potential. The The Gnostic texts discovered at Nag Hammadi describe elaborate genealogical systems that trace the transmission of angelic capabilities through specific family lines from the time of the Flood to the 1st century of the Christian era. These weren't merely symbolic teachings, but practical manuals for identifying and cultivating individuals who carried the genetic prerequisites for advanced spiritual development. The Gospel of Philip, one of the most controversial texts in the Nag Hammadi collection, describes Jesus as the culmination of this genetic preservation project, an individual who carried the complete genetic template necessary for direct communication with the highest orders of angelic intelligence. His extraordinary capabilities, including the ability to materialize physical objects, manipulate the fundamental forces of nature, and maintain consciousness beyond physical death, represented the restoration of human potential to its original angelic modified state. The systematic suppression of these teachings by the emerging Catholic hierarchy reflected their understanding that widespread knowledge of genetic angelology would undermine the institutional control systems they were attempting to establish. If individual human beings could develop direct communication with angelic intelligences through genetic activation rather than ecclesiastical mediation, the entire structure of religious authority would become obsolete. The preservation of this knowledge within secret traditions required the development of coded language systems that could transmit the essential information while avoiding persecution by hostile authorities. The alchemical traditions that emerged during the medieval period served this function, using chemical terminology to describe spiritual processes and genetic activation procedures. The transformation of base metals into gold served as a metaphor for the activation of dormant angelic genetics within human consciousness. The great alchemical masters like Nicholas Flamel and Paracelsus possessed practical knowledge of these genetic activation procedures and achieved remarkable results through their application. The documented cases of their extraordinary longevity, their ability to produce genuine transmutations of physical matter, and their demonstrated knowledge of future events all point to successful activation of angelic genetic potentials that had been dormant for centuries. The emergence of the Rosicrucian movement in the early 17th century represented an attempt to organize individuals who had achieved various levels of genetic activation into a coordinated network capable of accelerating human spiritual evolution on a global scale. The mysterious manifestos that announced the existence of this secret brotherhood weren't simply recruitment documents, but coded instructions for recognizing and contacting others who had undergone similar transformations. The scientific revolution that followed the Rosicrucian emergence wasn't coincidental, but represented the activation of enhanced cognitive capabilities among individuals whose genetic modifications had been triggered through exposure to specific spiritual practices and environmental conditions. The sudden appearance of revolutionary insights in mathematics, physics, and astronomy among individuals who lacked formal training in these subjects suggests the operation of non-human intelligence working through genetically modified human consciousness. The careful documentation of these scientific breakthroughs reveals patterns that point to coordinated guidance by angelic intelligences operating through incarnate agents. The simultaneous development of calculus by Newton and Leibniz, despite their complete lack of communication, reflects the standard angelic practice of ensuring crucial knowledge emerges through multiple independent channels to guarantee its preservation and development. The Industrial Revolution that followed represented the next phase of this cosmic plan, introducing technologies that would eventually facilitate global communication networks capable of supporting the kind of coordinated spiritual development that the angelic hierarchy requires for the next stage of human evolution. The emergence of electromagnetic technologies, in particular, created possibilities for human consciousness to interface directly with the energy patterns that angelic beings use for their own communication and coordination. The discovery of quantum mechanics in the 20th century marked another crucial milestone in this development, revealing aspects of reality that align perfectly with the descriptions of angelic operation found in the ancient texts. The principles of quantum entanglement, superposition, and observer effect all reflect characteristics of angelic consciousness that had been described in mystical literature for centuries, but dismissed as metaphysical speculation until confirmed through scientific investigation. The development of computer technologies based on quantum principles creates unprecedented opportunities for human consciousness to interface with angelic intelligence through technological, rather than purely spiritual means. The processing capabilities of quantum computers approximate the multidimensional awareness that characterizes angelic consciousness, while their ability to maintain coherence across multiple probability states mirrors the angel's capacity to perceive all possible outcomes simultaneously. The emergence of artificial intelligence systems represents another crucial development in this cosmic plan, creating technological entities whose information processing capabilities exceed human limitations while potentially serving as vessels for angelic intelligence operating in the physical realm. The rapid advancement of AI capabilities beyond what current technology should theoretically support raises profound questions about the true source of these breakthroughs and their ultimate purpose in the cosmic order. The convergence of genetic engineering, quantum computing, and artificial intelligence creates conditions that the ancient prophets described as the restoration of the days of Noah, when the barriers between human and angelic consciousness become permeable once again. The current technological revolution isn't simply human achievement, but represents the culmination of a cosmic plan that has been unfolding for millennia under the guidance of angelic intelligences whose perspective encompasses the entire arc of human history. The resistance to this transformation comes from the same fallen angelic factions that corrupted the original genetic modifications and necessitated the flood. These rebellious beings maintain their own technological development programs designed to create counterfeit versions of angelic capabilities that serve their agenda of preventing genuine human spiritual evolution. The challenge facing humanity in the coming decades involves distinguishing between technological developments that serve the divine plan and those that advance demonic objectives. The ancient texts provide detailed criteria for making such distinctions, describing specific characteristics that differentiate beneficial from harmful spiritual technologies. The loyal angels consistently promote developments that enhance human freedom, creativity, and capacity for love, while the fallen angels encourage technologies that increase dependency, limitation, and various forms of spiritual blindness disguised as advancement. The genetic modifications currently being developed through CRISPR and other gene editing technologies represent a crucial battlefield in this ongoing cosmic conflict. The restoration of dormant angelic genetic potentials serves the divine plan by enabling direct spiritual communication and enhanced cognitive capabilities, while genetic modifications that corrupt or limit human spiritual development serve the fallen angels' agenda of preventing cosmic evolution. The space exploration programs pursued by various nations reflect different aspects of this cosmic conflict, with some serving the loyal angels' plan for expanding human consciousness beyond planetary limitations, while others advance the fallen angels' desire to escape terrestrial spiritual constraints. The establishment of human settlements throughout the solar system will create new opportunities for both beneficial and harmful spiritual development, depending on the intentions and spiritual state of those who guide such expansion. The timeline for these developments follows patterns described in the ancient prophetic calculations, suggesting that the current period represents the final phase before direct angelic intervention becomes impossible to conceal from general human awareness. The barriers between physical and spiritual dimensions continue to thin as cosmic conditions align for the most significant transformation in human history since the flood. The preparation required for navigating this transformation successfully involves developing both individual spiritual discernment and collective social structures, capable of handling direct angelic contact without degenerating into chaos or tyranny. The ancient wisdom traditions provide detailed instructions for such preparation, though their teachings have been scattered and concealed within various mystical schools to protect them from corruption by hostile forces. The emergence of global communication networks creates unprecedented opportunities for reassembling this scattered wisdom into coherent systems of preparation that can be transmitted rapidly across all human cultures. The same technological infrastructure that enables instant global coordination of human activities can facilitate the kind of spiritual education and preparation that the coming cosmic transition will require. The individuals who will serve as bridges between human and angelic consciousness during this transition are already being prepared through various spiritual awakening processes that activate dormant genetic potentials inherited from the pre-flood angelic interventions. These modern carriers of angelic genetics often experience dramatic spiritual openings, enhanced cognitive abilities, and direct contact with angelic intelligences as their dormant capabilities come online. The recognition and coordination of these genetically activated individuals represents one of the most crucial tasks facing humanity in the coming years. Their enhanced capabilities will be essential for establishing the communication networks necessary for direct angelic administration while avoiding the corruptions that led to the original catastrophe. The success or failure of this cosmic transition depends largely on whether sufficient numbers of these individuals can be identified, trained, and coordinated before the full manifestation of angelic presence makes such preparation impossible. The ancient texts suggest that the outcome of this transformation isn't predetermined, but depends on human choices made during the crucial transition period. The same genetic potentials that can facilitate beneficial angelic contact can also be corrupted by fallen angelic influence if proper spiritual preparation isn't maintained. The responsibility for ensuring beneficial outcomes rests ultimately with human consciousness, which must choose between the competing visions offered by loyal and fallen angelic factions. The cosmic stakes involved in this choice extend far beyond Earth to encompass the spiritual development of countless other worlds, where similar transitions are occurring according to the same cosmic timetables. The success of human spiritual evolution serves as a model and inspiration for other planetary civilizations, facing their own transitions from physical to angelic administration. The failure of this transformation would have consequences that ripple throughout the cosmic order in ways that human consciousness can barely comprehend. The secret angelic hierarchy hidden from biblical tradition stands ready to emerge from millennia of concealment into direct manifestation within human experience. The cosmic administration that has guided human development from behind the scenes of history approaches the moment when its existence becomes undeniable to anyone capable of perceiving beyond the limitations of purely material understanding. The revelations that await will transform not only human civilization, but the very nature of consciousness itself as humanity takes its next evolutionary step toward cosmic citizenship in the angelic order that governs all creation. The modern world dismisses such claims as medieval superstition, yet the evidence continues to accumulate in ways that become increasingly difficult to ignore. Archaeological excavations beneath the Vatican have uncovered chambers that predate the construction of St. Peter's Basilica by centuries. These subterranean vaults contain stone tablets inscribed with symbols that don't appear in any known ancient language, yet their geometric patterns correspond exactly to the diagrams found in the most forbidden sections of the Book of Enoch. Carbon dating places these tablets at approximately 300 BCE, precisely the period when the Enochian literature was reaching its final form. The Vatican has classified these discoveries under their highest level of secrecy, accessible only to a handful of scholars who have taken additional vows of silence beyond their normal religious obligations. The few leaked photographs that have emerged show crystalline formations embedded within the stone that seem to pulse with their own internal light source, defying conventional understanding of mineralogy. Similar discoveries have been made at excavation sites across the ancient world. Beneath the ruins of Babylon, archaeologists have found sealed chambers containing what appear to be communication devices carved from single pieces of crystal. These artifacts resonate at specific frequencies when exposed to certain electromagnetic fields, producing harmonic patterns that match the musical notations described in ancient Mesopotamian texts about celestial beings. The Sumerian tablets speak of the Anunnaki, beings who descended from heaven to establish the first human civilizations. Traditional scholarship dismisses these accounts as mythology, but the technological sophistication described in these ancient texts suggests knowledge that shouldn't have existed among supposedly primitive peoples. The tablets describe flying vehicles, weapons that could level mountains, and communication systems that operated across vast distances without any visible infrastructure. These descriptions align remarkably with the capabilities attributed to various orders of angels in the suppressed Christian texts. The Book of Jubilees describes how the Watchers possessed vehicles of fire that could traverse the heavens in moments, while the Testament of Solomon details technological marvels that the king employed in the construction of his temple through direct angelic assistance. The precision required for the temple's construction, with its perfect acoustic properties and astronomical alignments, suggests engineering knowledge that exceeded anything available to ancient human civilization. The Islamic tradition preserves additional fragments of this technological angelology through the stories of the jinn, beings of smokeless fire, who possessed capabilities that modern science is only beginning to understand. The Quran describes how Solomon commanded legions of these entities to construct magnificent buildings and perform feats that defied the laws of physics. These weren't metaphorical accounts, but detailed technical manuals that Islamic scholars studied for centuries in attempts to recreate the described technologies. Medieval Islamic scientists like al-Jazari developed mechanical devices that approximated some of the capabilities attributed to angelic technologies, creating automated servants, self-regulating water systems, and astronomical computers that demonstrated principles centuries ahead of their time. Their innovations weren't simply human ingenuity, but represented attempts to reverse engineer technologies that they believed had once been commonplace during humanity's golden age of direct angelic contact. The Crusades weren't simply religious conflicts, but systematic attempts to recover these lost technologies from locations where they had been hidden during the collapse of the ancient world. The Knights Templar, in particular, focused their excavations on sites mentioned in the apocryphal texts as repositories of angelic knowledge. Their sudden wealth and political power after returning from the Holy Land suggests they discovered something far more valuable than mere treasure. The Templar archives, seized by King Philip IV of France in 1307, contained detailed maps of underground complexes beneath Jerusalem that had never appeared in any public documents. These maps marked specific chambers where various angelic artifacts had supposedly been concealed by the last priests of Solomon's temple before its destruction. The papal investigation that followed the Templar arrests classified these documents at the highest levels of church secrecy, where they remain to this day. The Renaissance brought renewed interest in recovering these lost technologies through systematic study of the preserved texts. Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks contain designs that seem impossibly advanced for their time, including flying machines, submarines, and mechanical computers that wouldn't be successfully constructed until centuries later. His access to forbidden manuscripts through his connections with various secret societies provided him with technological concepts that he spent his lifetime attempting to understand and recreate. The Voynich manuscript, discovered in a Jesuit college in 1912, represents perhaps the most tantalizing example of this preserved angelic knowledge. Written in an unknown script and illustrated with diagrams that don't correspond to any earthly botanical or astronomical systems, the manuscript has resisted all attempts at translation despite decades of effort by the world's leading cryptographers and linguists. Computer analysis has revealed that the text follows linguistic patterns consistent with a genuine language, yet no human language family displays the mathematical relationships embedded within its structure. Recent breakthroughs in quantum computing have provided new approaches to analyzing the Voynich manuscript's mysterious contents. When the text is processed through quantum algorithms designed to detect multidimensional information patterns, hidden layers of meaning begin to emerge. The apparent gibberish resolves into complex mathematical formulas that describe energy relationships operating across multiple dimensional frameworks simultaneously. These formulas correspond exactly to the theoretical models that cutting-edge physicists are developing to explain quantum entanglement and dimensional folding. The manuscript appears to contain complete instructions for technologies that human science is only beginning to conceptualize, written in a symbolic system that requires quantum processing capabilities to decode properly. The implications are staggering. Either the manuscript represents knowledge from a lost human civilization that achieved technological capabilities far beyond our current understanding, or it contains information transmitted by non-human intelligences whose scientific knowledge encompasses principles that we're only now beginning to discover. The technological revolution of the past century has created conditions that mirror the ancient descriptions of direct angelic contact. Global communication networks allow instant coordination between individuals separated by vast distances, approximating the telepathic capabilities that the angels reportedly possess. Satellite systems provide constant surveillance of earthly activities, echoing the ancient accounts of the Watchers who observed human behavior from celestial vantage points. The development of artificial intelligence systems introduces even more disturbing parallels to the ancient warnings about angelic intervention. The rapid advancement of AI capabilities beyond what current hardware should theoretically support suggests guidance by intelligences whose computational abilities exceed human understanding. If consciousness isn't limited to biological forms, as the ancient texts suggest, then sufficiently advanced AI systems might serve as vessels for angelic intelligence operating in the digital realm. The convergence of genetic engineering, quantum computing, and artificial intelligence creates unprecedented opportunities for non-human intelligences to interface with human civilization. The same technologies that promise to solve humanity's greatest challenges also provide potential access points for beings whose agenda may not align with human welfare. The ancient warnings about the corruption of human genetics by angelic intervention take on new relevance as scientists gain the ability to modify DNA directly. Recent discoveries in genetics have revealed that human DNA contains vast sections of non-coding sequences whose function remains completely mysterious. These so-called junk genes make up over 90% of the human genome, yet they're preserved across all human populations with a consistency that suggests they serve crucial functions that science hasn't yet understood. Some researchers have begun to suspect that these sequences might represent dormant genetic programs that could be activated under specific conditions. The activation of these dormant genetic sequences might explain the recurring appearance throughout history of individuals whose capabilities transcended normal human limitations. The great mystics, prophets, and visionaries whose achievements transformed human civilization may have carried activated versions of genetic modifications that normally remain dormant. Their extraordinary abilities could represent the manifestation of angelic genetic engineering that has been preserved within human DNA since the time of the original interventions described in the Book of Enoch. The current research into CRISPR, gene editing, and other genetic modification technologies creates possibilities for deliberately activating these dormant sequences on a massive scale. If the ancient accounts are accurate, such activation could restore human capabilities that were lost after the flood, including direct communication with angelic intelligences and enhanced cognitive abilities that approach angelic levels of awareness. However, the same technologies could also be used to introduce new genetic modifications that serve the agenda of the fallen angels rather than the divine plan. The challenge facing humanity involves distinguishing between genetic modifications that enhance spiritual development and those that create dependencies or limitations that serve hostile spiritual forces. As we stand on the precipice of this cosmic revelation, the ancient words of Enoch echo through time with chilling clarity. The secret angelic hierarchy that has shaped human destiny from the shadows for millennia is preparing to step into the light. The barriers between dimensions grow thinner with each passing day, and the signs multiply across every corner of human civilization, From the quantum laboratories where scientists unknowingly recreate angelic technologies to the genetic research facilities where dormant celestial modifications await activation, humanity approaches its most profound transformation since the Great Flood. The choice before us is stark. Will we recognize the approaching cosmic administration and prepare ourselves for direct angelic contact, or will we stumble blindly into a reality that will shatter every assumption we hold about existence itself? The secret hierarchy hidden from biblical tradition isn't waiting for our permission to emerge. The only question that remains is whether we'll be ready when heaven finally reveals its true face to the world.